Assalamu alaikum to the whole family out there. This is your brother, Brother Levant X of Brother Levant X Community Reporting, better known as BLXCR Talk Show Radio. We got our great show today, and we're talking about communication amongst men and women. And what better co host to have than a beautiful brother and sister tag team where they have a podcast called Love, Space, and Time, where you know definitely communication is important. But without further ado, we want to bring on Brother Vernon and Sister Camesha. Come on board, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey, good brother. Peace and blessings.
All
Peace,
right,
peace,
all right,
peace
all
to
right.
everybody out there.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, you know how we do. It's good to have my brother on here and definitely get a perspective from a woman, point of view. Also, this way we can keep the balance. First and
Absolutely.
foremost, tell the audience a little bit about your podcast and how they can definitely tune into you.
Okay, I'll jump in. So, peace, everyone. This is Sister Camesha, and our podcast is called Love, Space, and Time. And it's a podcast dedicated to couples who are in long distance relationships, who are looking for support, information, family, camaraderie, encouragement, all of those good things, because we want to see relationships that are strong and healthy, regardless of where you are located on the planet. So
Okay,
if you're
okay.
interested in learning more about it, you can definitely go to our YouTube channel, Love, Space, and Time. And also we have our website, lovespaceandtime.com.
All right, that's what's up. That's definitely a good plug. And how did you guys come up with that name in the first place? Love, space, and time. How did you come up with that concept?
That was we were talking about it. I don't remember if we were specifically trying to find a name or if it just rolled off I think it just rolled off. It just seemed like it was naturally meant to be. We were trying to come up with something, and the idea of love, space, and time all coming together just fit.
I remember that came from you, Vernon. That was your brainchild.
Okay. Yeah, it just
Oh,
just felt natural. Just felt natural. We were in the middle of a conversation.
all right, that's what's up, and that's definitely why we're glad that you have you both on this topic today, dealing with communication amongst men and women. And as you may know, across social media platforms, we tend to have this gender war going on. Some of it's healthy, a lot of it's unhealthy, but I think a lot of it has to do with communication, and everybody wants to be heard, but I don't think anybody's listening to one another. But before we go in, let's get a proper understanding of the definition of what communication is. Communication is the process of exchanging information, ideas, thought, feelings, and messages between individuals or groups through various means. It involves creation, transmission, and interpretation of messages in a way that achieves mutual understanding. Well, the key components of that also deals with, of course, you gotta have a sender, a message, and then you gotta have a receiver. So all those things have to come together, and then also tone how we perceive the information. All those things matter. So being that you, Brother Vernon, and Sister Kamisha are in a long distance relationship, you must really rely heavily on communication. So how does that work for you, knowing that this is something that has to be foremost the most important thing in order for you guys to connect with one another?
Absolutely. There's this thing called active listening, and I'm so glad that you included the part about receiving communication also. But now a lot of times people think that communication is all about having your say and making sure that you get heard, but active listening is really more about receiving and making the other person and what they have to say the important part of the conversation, the important part of the interaction. So it approaching it gives us the opportunity to make sure that we're doing it the right way. It's not about me dominating the conversation and just getting my point across. I'm here to serve. So I practice listening to Camesha and hearing what it is she has to say, because her viewpoint, her perspective is just as valid as mine.
Okay, so Tamisha, what's your perspective?
Okay, great. Vernon is definitely right on point with that. He does practice what he preaches, and I do feel heard when I'm talking to him. And sometimes it still amazes me when we'll have a conversation and then some time will pass and then he'll bring up something that I said, some little tidbit, and he'll bring it up again. I'm like, wow, you really were paying attention and listening to what I was telling you, because otherwise you wouldn't remember that little piece of information. So you definitely have to be an active listener. And if you don't understand something that your partner is saying, then you want to make sure that you have a conversation to say, this is what I'm hearing you. This is what you're saying. This is what I'm hearing from you. Because the whole point of it is to be on the same page, to have an understanding of what the other person is trying to tell you so that you don't take things out of context.
Well,
And I do what she's talking about. I do what she's talking about in a good way, because a lot of time people will remember what you had to say, and they'll bring it up just so they can use it against you. But that's not what we're talking about here.
So, Camesha, you said something very important in reference to when Vernon asked you that question, that you listened to everything that he said. You were surprised. As a woman, how important is it that the man that you're courting is listening to actually everything that you're saying, that he can actually bring it up into a conversation with you?
I mean, that is top three, because when we feel heard and understood, that creates in our mind the thought that, okay, this person really is striving to understand me. Let me open myself up more. Let me communicate better. Some of the things that I may have been afraid to talk about or didn't feel like I would be supported if I talked about, it makes us want to open up even more and create a sense of vulnerability, because we understand the person who is receiving this information has our best interest at heart.
Right.
And that for a woman is a sense of safety and security. And that's invaluable.
Right. So, do you feel, and like I said, the reason I'm asking you this is because I'm going somewhere with this. Now, one of the key things you said you built was safety and letting your guard down. Do you feel that in today's society, that if you listen to what a lot of men are saying, they also want that safe space? Do you feel that by you letting your guards down, that you want to reciprocate that same energy to Brother Vernon, to give him the chance to bring his guard down? Because both men and women have different wiring mechanisms on how they let their guards down. So do you feel that it's just as important to give him that safe space?
Oh, it's absolutely important. And one of the first conversations we had, we talked about the principle of reciprocity and how it has been difficult in both of our paths to receive the same type of energy that we were giving to our person. So I definitely strive to encourage him to open up to me more and share his thoughts and emotions with me, because I am receptive to what's going on with him so that I can be a better support to him. I feel like my role in this partnership is to be supportive, to be an emotional safe space for him, to push him, to hold him accountable, and he has to trust me to be able to, hear what I'm saying and take it to heart. So I have to create a space for him that, he feels safe in sharing all the things that are going on with him, even if it's difficult.
Wow. So, Brother Vernon, with that being said, she did mention the safe space. And, of course, with men, we're wired differently. How does it make you feel knowing that you're involved with somebody who's actually in the beginning telling you, I want to be a safe space, especially with the things that we deal with as men on a regular basis? How does that make you feel knowing that you have a partner striving to be that safe space for you?
Man, that is literally a prayer answered, man, because there's one of the things that I said to Camesha initially was this world gives us more than enough reasons to frown and be upset and, feel anxious and stressed. And one thing anybody wants, I definitely can speak for men, but I think women want the same thing. There's got to be a place where it's not about stress. It's not about fighting. It's not about wearing a mask or pretending, none of that stuff that you just have to do to survive and make it in this world. You got to have some place that you can retreat to that literally is your peace of mind. And one, striving to be that is so important in helping me to receive that.
Yes, sir. So with that being said, Vernon, do you feel that you want to open up? Because sometimes we do carry a lot of baggage as men. A lot of times we have a lot of things that, since sometimes things are thrown back at us when we do become vulnerable and open up. Does that cause a fear or some type of anxiety sometimes? Like, hey, I don't want to let up too much, or maybe I want to, I'm not giving her enough because she needs information in order for her to be your helpmeet in this situation. So how do you find a balance on when there's too much or not enough as far as being communicative to the Camesha?
I don't even think that I don't even think that it's the feelings, fear and whatnot that come into it. A lot of time, there's so many dynamics that come into play. Let me say it that way. I was raised as the oldest child, so I didn't necessarily have, the people to lean on like that. Me and my parents is different than having a big brother or big sister that you can, go to and confide in, and that's your buddy, that's your partner. So more so than the feelings of fear or whatever, it's just I might not be used to always verbalizing what's in my mind or what I'm feeling. So
Right.
much of how I handle life has just been okay. Well, just suck it up and deal with what you got to deal with, or handle what you got to handle. And for a long time, it was me. There's a serious gap between me and my younger brothers. So I just didn't have it like that. So as I went through life, I learned how to cope and how to make that my norm. So sometimes there might be something that needs to be said, and I just don't realize. Yeah, that's something you could talk to Camesha about, because that's what people do. They talk about stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
she's good about inviting me and I guess setting the environment and really trying to entice me to do more of that. So I appreciate that. That's
Mm-hmm.
helping me to grow and master that aspect of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, Kamisha, so what Brother Vernon said, and I know you can't speak for all women, but women are listening to this. How
Mm-hmm.
important is it if you were to share with women that they should give a man a safe space to speak, or they should allow a man to open up and then don't weaponize his words against them? What do you say to that?
I think that sort of mentality is a tool of our enemy to turn us against each other. I know some things about social programming and how the society is really teaching us to be against each other. And so we really have to do the opposite of all the little things that we see that have us fighting with each other. We really have to do the opposite of that. And as women, we definitely have to be very introspective and face the traumas that we have, face the little, it was very cliche to say generational traumas a couple of years ago, but that's a real thing. We need to face the things that have happened to us in our past and learn the tools to heal from that, because we are acting out of our traumas when we don't treat each other the way that we should be treating each other. Every person on this planet deserves to be heard and understood and have a safe place to express themselves in. And if we're going to get our families and relationships back healthy like they should be, then it's so important for us as women to create that safe space in our home. If you love this man the way that you say you love this man, then you will work on yourself and and give yourself all the tools and the equipment that you need to create a safe space for him. And if he loves you like he says he loves you, then he will work on himself to make a safe space for you to share, your feelings and emotions in that safe space. That's the only way that it's going to happen, because if we fall victim to the tricks that are presented in front of us, we got to be separate and fighting each other all the time, and that is not a survival. That is not how we're going to survive. We got to get back to meeting each other face to face and learning how to be in harmony and in unity with each other. So that's top tier, ladies. We've got to work on ourselves, learn how to control our emotions. Yes, we are emotional, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's not a good thing to allow our emotions to run rampant. It could be a beautiful tool for us if we learn how to master them.
Right. Well, you said something great. This is a question for both of you. You said a clean slate. Now, of course, we are of age and we've been in relationships before, but coming into the relationship, right? And this is long distance. You said you had to have a clean slate. How important is it for both man and woman to have a clean slate before going into a relationship moving forward? Either one could take that question.
I think it has to do with intention. Because, like you said, we all have had relationships in the past. We've been married, whatever the case may be. But at this point, are you intentional about the person that you're with? Because if you're intentional about the person that you're with and you're working on yourself, then all of the things that you experienced in the past have become like a learning lesson for you and can show you, okay, this is what you need to do right. This is what you need to do stop doing because it's not working for you. And be intentional with the person that you're currently with and, make the best of it. The clean slate for me is about I'm not being the person that I was in the past that made all those mistakes and that wasn't growing and prospering like I am today. The clean slate is having a new mentality and idea about the person that I'm with, and I'm intentional about this person, and I'm going to do everything in my power to create an environment where this relationship is healthy and growing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that everybody has something that they're bringing along with them. Everybody has some reason why they are the way they are. And if you are really committed to being the best of yourself and offering the best of yourself to this person, then you really have to start, looking at, okay, well, how can I get rid of some of the stuff that I don't need to bring with me and make sure that I'm becoming the kind of person that is going to be good for the future with this person I'm with. I think it's starting to become my thing, but I tell my story about the commitment that I made to Camesha, and it's that every day I'm working on myself so I can present the best of myself to her.
Right.
What I want the future to be is better than anything that was in my past. So I'm constantly revisiting that slate to make sure that anything that I can wipe off or doesn't need to move forward with me isn't going to be part of the picture in the future. So that just goes with what we've been taught. Self-improvement is the basis for community development. So yeah, it's critical to wipe that slate clean and make sure that you're not bringing baggage that doesn't belong into your future.
And can I say something here about the power of forgiveness?
Yes.
I think forgiveness is very important when you're starting things new. A lot of times it's not even about how others judge us, it's how we judge ourselves. that gets in the way. So have courage enough to say, listen, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been in that situation. I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. I'm working towards being a better me, and I forgive myself. And in turn, that, in my opinion, makes it easier for you to forgive your partner, because we're going to get on each other's nerves. We're going to make each other mad sometimes. But if you are familiar with forgiveness and you're practicing that for yourself, I think it's easier to have that same principle with other people, especially the one that's closest to you.
Right. You said something also, and I like to send the key word. You said anger. And something about anger brings out a different person, what have you,
Mm-hmm.
and having control of that anger and emotions and rising above emotions. How important is that to be mindful when you're feeling angry, to either, is it necessary to actually engage in a conversation when you're angry, or is it important to take a time out and come back when cooler heads are prevailing?
Yeah, I think it's just important to recognize that you're feeling a certain way, and um, if you need to walk away from the situation, walk away from it. Because we see so many times in society where people have gotten angry and made a mistake that has cost them their freedom or cost somebody their life. And we don't want to do that with each other. But it all starts again with that self work that you do, diving into who you are, why you feel a certain way, why do certain things trigger you, you know? So when you're understanding more about why you behave the way that you do, then it becomes less easy for other people to make you upset.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Brother
been my
Vernon?
experience.
Right. Brother Vernon, anger issue. How do we control when we upset, and how do we better control our temper so this way communication can be used properly instead of saying things in spite to hurt one another because of we're in a in a rage. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, like we just stated, taking that time out is important. How important is it for you as a man when you feel a certain way to know when to draw the line in the sand and come back when your head is more at a stable way of communicating?
And of all the things that echo in my head, that message is one of the probably the top five. You have to control yourself. You have to think before you speak. You have to give yourself time before you react. Everything doesn't need my response, and I don't have to have the last word. So
Mm-hmm.
all of that is part of, for me, all of that has been part of growing up and
Mm-hmm.
becoming the man that I know I'm supposed to be. And it wasn't always that way. Sometimes you got to learn lessons the hard way, but that's experience talking. Anger. Everybody might feel or experience anger at some point, but you can never act out of anger. You always have to get to the point where you're beyond the emotion so that you can act with wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I
Well,
agree.
there's another question for both of you also, because like you said, life is our best teacher. Can you give it an example of a time that you learned a hard lesson that you use as a tool today to strengthen your relationship?
Hmm. Oh,
Um,
that's a good one. That's a good one. Let me
you
let
got
me
someone you
let
want
me
me?
think about that.
All right. While
This is
she's
on you,
thinking,
brother.
right. While she's thinking, okay. I guess keeping it in line with what we're talking about, there have been times when between me and Camesha we're interacting with something, and I'll see something that isn't necessarily the what I like. It isn't necessarily something that I think goes along with harmony between us, and how I respond to her or to that situation. Um, she she lets me know that I've handled things in a way that makes her feel comfortable, that gives her a good feeling, definitely makes her to know that I can handle her properly. And that kind of encouragement, first of all, for her to say that, for a man to hear that, that's very encouraging. And that motivates me to know that I'm on the right direction. And if I've been trying to work on myself in this way, I need to keep that up, because things that could get ugly, could go left, you know, could turn into a whole lot more than it is. I'm seeing how it can. There's a way to resolve conflicts. There's a way to mitigate things and cause heads to cool off, as opposed to you gotta go through the whole blow up, and then you gotta make up to break up, or break up to make up, or however that goes. And sometimes that's not necessary. If you handle things properly, if you wait, give yourself time, don't always say the first thing or even the fifth thing that comes to mind.
Right.
You can always find a better way to handle things. And being patient with myself, being patient with her or whoever I'm interacting with, has gone a long way in helping me to avoid some of the stress and drama that comes from communication and relationships like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Very
Sister Camesha.
simple.
Yeah,
Very
it's
simple.
time to get your answer together, sister.
I was thinking, I'm like, wow, I can't remember the last time. Well, I can't remember the last time I was super angry with somebody. It's just always hard to learn that someone you trusted. Has nothing to do with Vernon, but it's always hard or difficult to understand that someone that you thought was being honest with you actually turned out to be a liar. And I was faced with that. And, I did have all these crazy thoughts running through my mind. But the one thing that kind of always reels me back in, it's like, okay, if you are destructive to anybody's property or any craziness like that, you'll end up in jail. And then your whole life will be down, you know, your whole life will go down tremendously. I could lose everything that I've worked so hard to gain. So in that moment, I had to remind myself that there is such a thing as karma, where I have been honest and someone else has not been. I don't have to worry about doing anything to that person, because what they send out is going to come back to them and it's going to deal with them effectively. And it's so amazing that I did not, even though I felt all the emotions in that moment, I didn't do that. And I found my way to forgiving the person for, their character flaw, because we all have them. And life goes on and life is better. And I don't have the consequences of acting out of my anger to deal with today. So I'm grateful that I had enough awareness to say, even though I'm angry and upset, I'm not going to, quote unquote, slash tires or do anything like that. I'm going to be a dignified woman and go ahead on and live my life. And what's for them is for them.
So glad I got me a dignified woman.
All right. You can pick a sneaky. Well, Sister Camesha, I'm gonna ask you this, then, sister. Do you believe that women make better spouses or better people to be in a relationship with if they had a strong father figure in their life to see how it is and what it is, how to be treated, or how a man should conduct himself? Therefore, when you do come amongst a man, you're not taking bad examples that you may see whether on television, through music, through other mediums, or other people's toxicity. How important is it for a young woman or women in general to have that example of a strong father figure or male figure to know how to deal with the opposite sex?
That is so, 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 so important. And keyword being a good male role model, because sometimes the fathers are not present, sometimes they're not good men. And so that's where the positive male role models come into our lives, or the positive mentors that we get to experience. Even a male friend who is a good person in your life can definitely be a benefit because they have that perspective of, being a man to help guide us through situations. So I think that that's so very important. It's so very important.
Yes, ma'am. And then running on that end, how important it is for you to actually see how a woman should talk to a man, especially as young men and young boys growing up. How a mother conducts herself as she speaks to a man, the mannerism in which she carries herself. Sometimes we look for those different examples through our mother or our aunt, whoever, and how women should be in our eyes. So, what kind of examples have you seen from that perspective? That how you try to carry that over, whether it be positive or negative? How do you carry that over to your relationship?
Man, it's there's so many people who don't realize how much of an impact they are making. And in the example that they're giving, you never know when people are observing you or watching you, and how what you do or how you act and how you handle situations influences other people to either do the same thing or maybe make better choices. But it's absolutely critical to answer your question that number one, every individual is aware of what they're doing and how you're really on Front Street, whether you know it or not.
Right.
You're setting an example for somebody, either on what to be or what not to be. But it whenever you move, you have to move with intention. You have to be deliberate because you're shaping life for yourself, of course. What you do is going to have consequences, but the energy you put out, it lands somewhere, and sometimes it's back to you. Sometimes you put energy out, it benefits somebody else, or it could harm somebody else. But
Right.
sometimes that energy does come back to you. So I think it's a good thing to just be mindful of always striving to put out the best that you possibly can.
Right. Look, Sister Kamisha, you remember in the early night conversation, you said that it's good for some women to get some the trauma out and those other elements. And I asked Brother Vernon in reference to the example of how his mother or any woman of influence communicates. Now we're seeing a lot on social media and different other platforms, examples of incorrect ways of communicating. How important is it for a young girl or young women to see how a woman should conduct herself, especially speaking to a male figure?
It's definitely extremely important. And I'm just amazed every time that I see, of course, again, like you mentioned on social media, women attempting to fight men physically like that blows my mind. Like, men, first of all, are physically stronger than us. And then they've always, most of the time, been taught to not lay hands on a woman. And just blows my mind. I mean, so it's important for women to understand that if you really want to get the respect that you say that you want, then you really have to give it. There's no way around it. If you really want the love and respect and protection, admiration, support of a man, you really have to give it in order to get that in return. And even that is in degrees and stages as you're learning about each other. You're learning, what you can or how what you can give or how far you can go with this person as you're learning them. But reciprocity is something that can never be downplayed. You cannot ask for what you're unwilling to give. And I think that's a part of the trouble that we're having in relationships because, we're being taught through this social engineering that, uh, the man should do all of these things for you, but we as women have to give and do as well. We have to give and do as well. We have to give what we are expecting to get in return.
And I want to keep it right there because this is very important what you said. I'm pretty much timing off my notes that the observation that I seen, of course, on social media and different other genres of platforms that talk about these things that you're talking about. But you may have some who might say that, well, I do these things, but the man don't do this. I may do these things, and the man may not do that. Is it fair to say that women, just like men, have to take accountability amongst the choice of men that they decide to let come into their life? And because we talk about
Absolutely.
communication, that is important that certain things should be said up front. Because a lot of times
Hmm.
people put the physical before the spirituality and the communication. So how important is that,
Right.
Sister Kamisha?
Once again, very, very, very important. In our podcast earlier today, we were talking about being intentional in the relationship and talking to each other in the beginning about what it is that you're looking for. So if you're jumping to the physical before you even really have an understanding of the person that you're dealing with, then that is definitely going to cause an issue. You got to have those tough conversations at the very beginning so that you're not wasting your time and the other person is not wasting their time.
Hmm. Okay, same question, to you, Brother Vernon, because as men, we tend to like what we see, automatically. That's just the nature how we built. But once we get past that, what is it about Sister Kamisha that you said that, in order for me to know this is the person that I'm going to pursue, what choice of words, because we talk about communication, that you said that actually said, okay, this is the person I want to move forward with?
Hmm. I think the exact words I used were, I think it was like, peace looks good on you. I think that, that we initially started our conversation with something like that. She said, I found a new piece or something like that. And I just gave her a compliment. It was the most innocent compliment that I think I could have given. But I just said that, hey, if you're wearing peace right now, it looks good on you. And I just left it there, and it started from there. But I
Right.
think that being real, being authentic in your communication, being authentic in who you are presenting yourself to be, and really looking to see not the person all dressed up, the person who's trying to put their best act on, but just observing how they are in life. What
Mm-hmm.
attracted me to Kamisha is how she does life. And I told her
Mm.
that, hey, how you do life makes me want to do life with you, you know,
Oh.
because I just see how she moves on the regular, and without all the other illusion stuff in the way. The realness is what made me say that, yeah, that's someone and something that could be good for me. In the same way that when I go to the doctor, they ask you, hey, do you know if you're allergic to anything? They ask me because they expect me to know what's good for me. So
Right.
being able to look at her and observe her and see just the normal things about her, I can tell, oh, this is something that's good versus this is something that's not good.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
voila. Now, you can get to the nitty gritty of this. Now, it's one thing to have communication on the phone because, both of y'all, in the comfort of your home, and, you can have the mismatched pajamas on, and you can have your hair down, that's not free.
Yeah.
But the communication when you see each other in person, how did that change up? Because I know that it's one thing, once again, communicating on the phone, but that initial conversation is always different when you see the person face to face. How was that like?
Um, wow. I feel like we are the same in person. And I feel
Yeah,
like
it's so every day.
our level of comfortability has definitely grown as far as how we experience each other in person. We have a lot in common. We like to do a lot of the same things. And we're both very adventurous. We're always, talking about trying new things and planning to do things together. So we have a blast. We have a blast.
Brother Vernon?
Yeah, our everyday communication just continues from conversation to conversation. So if we were having a conversation before I got on the plane, when I land in Atlanta, then we just, pick up where we left off and we just finishing that conversation. So the interaction that we have is literally, this is us doing life together. So whether we are 744 miles apart or whether we close the gap, we know how to just roll with it.
Oh wow, that's what's up, and I definitely appreciate it. And you know what, I just want to ask, you know, and we talk about communication, and this question could go between you and also the Camesha. Where do you see you guys, based off your communication, since that's the topic, where do you see yourself, or hopefully within the next 6 months?
Based on our communication, in 6 months we have the goal. The episode of our podcast that we did today was on goals and expectations. So that's really on Front Street for what we're doing together. We have a purpose for being together, and there are things that we're working towards, things that we can feel good about working on together. Building this podcast, coming up with a brand that we can share between us and learn how to make it grow and turn into something that we want to be beneficial for both of us. That's become the central to why we are interacting with one another in general. We see something good that we want to produce together. So 6 months to a year from now, the hope and the prayer is that we can definitely close the gap in the space and time that's between us. But we definitely want to make sure that everything that we're doing between now and then is just increasing and strengthening the bonds between us, because we don't want the distance to weigh on us. We don't want it to be more difficult than it has to be. So if we make life more pleasant for one another and easier for one another, we're both committed and willing to do that.
And I think that having the projects to work on definitely makes the time that we are away from each other easier for me to handle.
Okay, and that's key, and I like the idea in the title of your podcast. You definitely have the love, it's obvious, and then the space, the long distance, and then the time. Now, speaking of time, how much time do you believe um, is necessary if you to give advice to someone in a long distance relationship? How much time do you believe that they should be given before you either say this is something worth going forward with, or this is a waste of time, based off communication? Because it's always easy. Lust is very powerful. Being physical is always easy because you're talking to see, and you can put in your mind whatever you want. But if we talk about communication, that's a whole different ball game. From your assessment, if you're giving advice to someone, how much time should be given based off the communication that somebody should say whether this is a waste of time or something that we should be going forward with? Either one can take the question.
If you're communicating, then it shouldn't take long at all to be able to tell if it's a waste of time. If you're communicating from a real, if you're having real meaningful communication, then you can see whether this is a valuable use of your time and an investment of yourself or not. And once you determine that, hey, I'm not wasting my time with this, then you can take the time to make sure that you're actually getting something valuable out of it. But yeah, if the quality of your communication is what it needs to be, then you really save yourself some time, because anything that you find out is not good for you, that kind of stands out, that comes out right up front, and you can decide where you want to go with it from there.
And one of the things I would like to add at this point is that Vernon and I asked each other a lot of questions. Every day we were asking each other questions, and not just the surface level type stuff, but really thought-provoking questions. And our chemistry was such that whatever I asked him, the way that he would answer and respond, I could tell he put a lot of thought into his answer. And it corresponded to something that I felt deeply in my heart. So our chemistry was there from the beginning. And I think that we're very fortunate in that way because it didn't take us a long time to understand what we have found with each other is a beautiful thing. And if we are intentional, and since we are intentional about what we're doing, I mean, everything is just falling into place for us. It's not
Okay.
work. It's
No,
not
you
work at
said
all.
you said something great, Sister Camesha, and also Brother Vernon. Now, you said you didn't ask each other, the above surface questions. Can you give a definition? Because some people may not understand that. Because some people may hold back because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. But you talk about involving in someone's life in the romantic sense. Then you don't
Hmm.
want to find out later on that, man, I should have asked that question because sometimes certain questions open up certain floodgates. So can you give a definition from your perspective, if somebody is in a long distance relationship or even on local level, how important it is to ask hard questions, and can you give some examples of what hard questions may look like? Because somebody might not understand what a hard question may look like when you're dealing with somebody.
Oh man, that's one of our favorite topics.
So it's definitely very important. And I can tell you that for me, I felt like it was easier with him being long distance. I felt like it was easier for me to ask those type of thought provoking questions because I wasn't anxious or nervous about how he was going to answer as if he was sitting across the table from me or if I had to see him tomorrow or something like that. For me, it just was easier for me to ask those thought provoking questions with him being long distance. And I think too, because we're both, very mature individuals and we have are definitely putting in the work as far as, making ourselves better. We've had to ask ourselves some of the very same questions. We had to get into why we are the way that we are. So when a person asks you, okay, so what's your relationship with your father? Do you get along with your family? What happened with your past marriage and why are you the way that you are now? Have you recognized any triggers in your life that cause you to behave a certain way? Like asking those type of questions for me are important because you want to understand really, who you're dealing with. I don't care about your favorite color. I'll learn that along the way. I want to know what happened in your life that helped you to become the person that you are now. Let's get into that.
That's real, Brother Vernon.
Yeah, for me, the we share a lot of the same values, the things that I value and the things that are really important to me. Kamisha has shown that she values the same things, or at least she shows respect for the things that she may be in a different square on, but she shows respect for the square that I'm standing on. And to
Right.
me, that goes a long way. We both believe that friendship was what started this, and friendship is the most critical ingredient in anything that's going to develop out of this. So if she's really my friend, first of all, yeah, she's got to value the things that I value, or at least respect them. But there's nothing that we can't communicate about, and just be honest, be real about it because we're friends. I'm not trying to, at that point in the conversation, I wasn't trying to get anything from her. So I was really trying to relate to her from a place of honesty. I mean, do we have anybody in our lives we can just be honest and be real with? That's what I wanted. So when we were having those kind of questions and conversations that came up, it back to what we began this conversation with. She made it safe and comfortable for me to say some things out loud that I before then, I only said in my own head. And sometimes ideas hit different when you finally get a chance to speak them out loud or actually say them to somebody. So the things that she, made it easy for me to just say or talk about or have a discussion and hear some feedback about became so valuable to me that it made it easy to get into deeper areas and deeper subjects. And we really have to give credit where credit is due, because we leaned on the tool that we have on our website that came from our sister out of Detroit. There's a book called Relationship Talks, written by Katrina Muhammad, which is literally a book full of questions that you probably should ask someone if you're courting or dating, or even if you're already married. But sometimes because people don't have these conversations or they avoid the questions, she just lists them out there. And it's easy to look in the book, read the question, say, okay, hey, well, let's do a question a day. This is the question that we're going to tackle today. And we didn't have to feel any type of way about answering them and being honest about the answer, because that's just the question for the day. We'll talk about anything that there is to talk about.
Man, that's what's up. And I definitely appreciate this conversation.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yes, it was a great answer, and it was definitely needed, especially in the times that we're in. I believe that we can use these platforms, podcasts, or whatever we're doing to try to bridge the gap to bring us together. Because of course, in our teachings, um, family is the cornerstone of our community, and if we having these gender wars and we always talk about divisive and nobody's listening, then we're not setting up the next generation for success, because they're not seeing examples of what brings a community together. Because, of course, as Sister Camesha said, there's an agenda out there to have us at odds with each other. Nobody's trying to be reasonable. Nobody's trying to come to the table with solutions. Everybody just wants to keep the flames going. But one of the best ways of communication is knowing the art of de-escalation, to be able to hear what each other's saying and have intentions, and on trying to fix the problems if there are any, to better the situation. So with that being said, let's give Sister Camesha and then Brother Vernon the last closing statements for this evening. It was definitely a pleasure, and it was definitely inspirational to have a conversation with Love, Space, and Time, the podcast series, actually on air with us and sharing their insights on long distance relationships. So, Sister Camesha, any closing words or advice you can give to the listening audience?
Yes, I would just like to say, don't be afraid to look in the mirror and see what it is that you need to work on to make yourself a better person. When you actively engage in that process of self-improvement, you will begin to attract the type of person into your life that is good for you, a quality individual that's good for you, and that will help you to have a beautiful journey together. It all starts with honestly taking an assessment of where you are, who you are, why you do the things that you do, and gaining the tools that you need to make yourself a better person, a better being. So don't be afraid of the mirror.
Very good. Brother Vernon?
I really can't think of anything better to say than what Camesha already said. We are, that's an example of us being on the same square. We are right there together. So definitely, look at yourself and strive to improve day by day and offer the best of what you have to offer for the person that you say you care about. I also want to thank you, Brother Levon, for creating this space in the community where people can step up and just share what they have and add value into the conversation. Because this is what it takes. It takes all of us collaborating and being comfortable working with one another with all the good that we have to add to make things better. So I'm glad to be included in this, and anything that we can do to help people along, to operate in cooperative strength and unity, and just make things a whole lot better than anybody can do on their own. That's what we're all about.
Praise be to Allah. That was what's up, brother. And definitely thank you both for actually participating in this conversation and doing what you do. And if anybody wants to hear Love, Space, and Time, we also have them on our talk show radio podcast as a community. It's not just myself. Love, Space, and Time does have episodes which you can hear on the website on www.brotherlevantxcommunityreporting.com. You can also hear us on Podbean, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So we're striving to bring a positive message out there. And also, please give them your website and your handle one more time, Brother Vernon, Mr. Camesha.
We're on the lovespaceandtime.com. That's our website. That's where our community is forming. We have resources in the back office, so go ahead and give us your name and information, and we can always drop you a line in your inbox to let you know when we have something good coming out. And also, don't forget, go to our YouTube channel, Love, Space, and Time, and like, subscribe, and share. We are looking to grow. We're looking to add value and always have something good to offer. So please, anywhere you can find us, Love, Space, and Time.
All right, so that's our show for this evening. We definitely want to thank our brothers and sisters for coming on. We definitely wish the best, and God willing, we probably record from their wedding, from the DJ booth. I'll be giving shout outs and maybe some records from my friends, and hopefully that we can be airing it from that point on. But
always Apple in Las Vegas.
Yes, boom. Right. So it was definitely a pleasure. I definitely thank you both, and may Allah bless you with success. And it's important that we have these healthy conversations, that we're looking to bring our people together instead of divisive and clickbaits and negativity that does nothing for our community. So thank you for being a positive inspiration. All right, so that's
Thank
it.
you for having us.
No doubt, and may Allah bless everybody. Allah bless no name for God, and enjoy the rest of your week. Peace.
Peace.
All right, that was great.